Motu and Patlu were two best friends who loved to do science experiments. They would spend hours in the lab, mixing different chemicals and trying to create new things. One day, they decided to do an experiment with vinegar and baking soda. They mixed the two ingredients together in a bowl, and a big cloud of foam erupted. Motu and Patlu were so excited by their experiment that they decided to do more. They tried mixing different colors of vinegar and baking soda, and they even tried mixing different shapes of baking soda. They had a lot of fun, and they learned a lot about science along the way. One day, Motu and Patlu were doing an experiment with magnets. They were trying to see how many magnets they could attach to a single piece of metal. They started with one magnet, and then they added another, and another. Soon, they had a whole chain of magnets hanging from the metal. Motu and Patlu were so impressed by their experiment that they decided to show it to their friends. They invited all of their friends over to the lab, and they showed them how they had made the chain of magnets. Their friends were amazed, and they all wanted to try it themselves. Motu and Patlu had so much fun doing science experiments with their friends. They learned a lot about science, and they also had a lot of fun. They decided to start a science club so that they could share their love of science with other kids. The science club was a big success. Motu and Patlu led the club, and they taught the other kids about different science experiments. They also had a lot of fun doing experiments together. The science club was a great way for Motu and Patlu to share their love of science with other kids, and it was also a lot of fun. One day, Motu and Patlu were doing an experiment with electricity. They were trying to see how much electricity they could generate from a potato. They attached wires to the potato, and they hooked the wires up to a light bulb. When they turned on the switch, the light bulb lit up. Motu and Patlu were so excited that they had successfully generated electricity from a potato. Motu and Patlu continued to do science experiments, and they learned a lot about different scientific principles. They also had a lot of fun, and they made a lot of new friends. They were two best friends who loved science, and they were always looking for new and exciting experiments to do. Motu and Patlu were so excited by their success that they decided to do more experiments with electricity. They tried using different types of potatoes, and they also tried using different types of wires. They even tried using a potato battery to power a small toy car. Motu and Patlu had so much fun doing their experiments that they decided to enter them in the science fair. They worked hard on their projects, and they were confident that they would win. On the day of the science fair, Motu and Patlu were nervous, but they were also excited. They presented their projects to the judges, and the judges were very impressed. Motu and Patlu won first place in the science fair, and they were so happy. Motu and Patlu's success in the science fair inspired them to continue doing science experiments. They started a blog where they wrote about their experiments, and they also started a YouTube channel where they showed videos of their experiments. Motu and Patlu became very popular on the internet, and they were able to share their love of science with people all over the world. They inspired other kids to do science experiments, and they showed people that science can be fun. Motu and Patlu continued to do science experiments for many years. They learned a lot about science, and they also had a lot of fun. They were two best friends who loved science, and they made a difference in the world by sharing their love of science with others. Motu was the more creative and outgoing one, while Patlu was the more logical and one. Motu loved to come up with new ideas for science experiments, while Patlu was always there to help him figure out how to make them work. One day, Motu came up with the idea to build a solar-powered car. Patlu was skeptical at first, but Motu was determined to make it happen. They spent weeks gathering materials and building the car. It was a lot of hard work, but they finally finished it. The solar-powered car was a success. It was able to travel several miles on a single charge. Motu and Patlu were so proud of themselves. They had learned a lot about science and engineering, and they had also had a lot of fun,